that was the second harmonic. Huh. The third harmonic. One, two, three. Imagine if I could go to 37. Well, Jupiter and Saturn are going to 37 right now. Once again, I'm being told that this video is set to private, but I also see that 3 of you are here right now. So I want to see if there's like a little button I might push that lets me experience live chat. It seems to be so. Olivia, thank you for saying good afternoon. Good afternoon to you. So the title of the video is Jupiter and Saturn in the 37th harmonic. The mysteries of life. The mysteries of life, which came from this, the Vibrational Astrology Study Guide. From the Association of Vibrational Astrologers, that's Vibrational Astrology, David Cochran's paradigm created as an expansion of harmonic astrology, which in a sense reaches all the way back to the divisional charts of the Vedic astrologers, probably millennia into our past, at least many centuries. And in the so-called Western tradition, it's kind of a quite new thing, maybe first with the breakthroughs of the Hamburg schools and cosmobiology and Uranian astrology. Um, but then with folks like John Addy in like the late 60s, 70s, this idea of harmonic astrology coming in. I mean, maybe even with Kepler sometime in the early 17th century, right? Who was saying, well, why don't we add fifths of the wheel to this thing and not just get stuck in the old Ptolemaic aspects of opposition, trines, squares, sextiles. Yeah, I'm currently obsessed with harmonic astrology. If you follow my page, you know that to be true. And I wanted to speak today on Jupiter's Day, Thursday, about Jupiter, this Taurus Jupiter. Um, and since I likely won't beam a live thing on Saturday, I thought I'd speak a bit about Jupiter and Saturn and where they are in the phase of their 20-year-ish cycle that was seeded on December solstice of 2020 when Jupiter and Saturn met in the first degree of tropical Aquarius. For the rest of our lives, Jupiter Saturn conjunctions will only happen in the air signs, right? So astrologers made a big deal of this at the time, and I just want to check in with where they are in their current cycle. And you know what? Let's do this also for an example chart or two of folks who are here live. So if you've got, I don't know, 30 minutes to spend, um, I'm just reading. Michelle writes, my 37th harmonic chart appears to be very busy. Cool. Yeah, actually, I figure mine must be too. So I just cast mine and maybe not. So let's talk about, how to find if a harmonic chart is kind of strong or not. Why even cast a 37th harmonic chart? Why I was inspired to today. But at the end of this thing, I think it'd be fun to look into, where a couple folks here live were born in a Jupiter Saturn cycle, which cycle you were born to. If we want to go there, in this case, I'm going to have to ask for full birth data. So if you want to remain kind of unanimous, but you're willing to share your birth data, go with your code name here and just type it into the live chat. If you're watching this at a time that I currently perceive to be the future and we're no longer live, no need to write it there, okay? But for anyone who wants to play, maybe I'll do this for my own chart and just see if it's a thing at all. All right. They say in the tradition that Jupiter and Saturn are these like social planets. It's, I mean, interesting to consider Saturn kind of restrictive, foundational, Jupiter expansive, right? I like to say that they work together, though it seems that they are so opposite to one another that Jupiter, in the model of a hot air balloon, is like the air that lifts us. But we would go nowhere without the fabric that constricts us, right? And in that place where the expanding air meets the constricting fabric, it might seem like a war, but really they're in it together to lift you up. We also need Saturn for that wicker basket that we are riding this hot balloon in. And fortunately, the hot air balloon doesn't only go up, but it can also come down and bring us back to Earth, right? So maybe Jupiter up in the storms and Saturn down here on the land. I'm remembering that Anna and I last night were intrigued by what sounded like bursts of thunder outside. I spent some time like just kind of in deep gratitude, which I think is actually part of the calling of this right now. Just for I'm safe, these things that kind of sound like bombs aren't where I am, right? And just prayers for those who are experiencing that very real fear in this moment. And gosh, sadly, it seems every moment, yeah. Anyway, yeah, we were outside like, what is this? And maybe we'd be inspired to do a little bit of independent research. Ah, are you allowed to say independent research on YouTube? maybe again we can use that phrase. Couldn't a couple years ago. Um, anyway, why am I saying independent research at all? I guess I should say independent review, because Jupiter and Saturn are currently engaged in a 37th harmonic. I will show you why. Yes, we're going to get the calculator out and do a little bit of math. All right. This will show you also how you can, if you choose, kind of manually calculate harmonic phases between planets in your natal chart or in any like transit chart, like right now. And then there's some and very few resources to look into some kind of higher harmonics. Okay. One of them, again, as I held up before, I'm going to read from Vibrational Astrology Study Guide, Module 2 by the Association of Vibrational Astrologers. And yes, there is a Module 1. And they say these books won't work unless you've like taken their courses. I can't even find their courses anyway, but I'm able to utilize the books just fine. They say this of the 37th vibration. When I say they, I really probably should be saying David Cochrane, right? Who's created this paradigm of vibrational astrology. There are very few others who have looked into kind of higher harmonics. One of those would be David Hamblin, but in his spirit of numbers, he goes through prime numbers and only up to 33. So if I want to investigate 37, it ain't happening here. If I want to investigate 36, I can do that by seeing the 36 is twice 18, which is twice 9. And see something about 36 in 9 times 4. And if I know something about 9s or noviles or the 9th harmonic, and something about 4s or squares in the 4th harmonic, then I can get after 36 through 9 and 4. I cannot do this with 37. It's a prime number, right? And so David Cochrane's done a bunch of qualitative research. I haven't had direct conversations with him about this from the beginning of the approach. You're seeing like the data for the 37th. But generally speaking, he has a gigantic database of charts, right? And he finds using the computers who has strong 37th harmonic charts, tries to see something that they share in common. And then, that's what the 37th is. Yeah, it's a tricky science and it's hard to get a clean experiment in astrology, right? Anyway, Jupiter and Saturn are currently in 37. In this moment, so are Moon and Venus. That will be short-lived because Moon moves quite quickly, right? And I'll show you that chart in this moment, and this will persist for some time. There's a bit of a 37th-ish thing in Uranus and Neptune too, and in Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto. So what a fun time to talk about the 37th here in the vibrational Astrology Study Guide, Module 2, the Association of Vibrational Astrologers says this about the 37th vibration, which they call Independent Review of Mysteries of Life. And so now you see why I've titled this particular video here at the YouTube channel, Jupiter and Saturn in the 37th harmonic, the mysteries of life. But independent review of mysteries of life. They say the energy is digging deeply into some specialized area to develop a rich, unique, multi-layered essence over time, seeking a perfected mastery of the area of interest. Um, I just said that, read this over at my Instagram space, and my friend Lucian's like, Brett is the 37th. And I feel like this must be a strong harmonic for me because I'm like keyed this way. I have so many cool teachers, and they're like, yo, Brett, this is how it is. And I'm like, why? And then I have to go to the sky and the earth and seek, to the calculators, to the melodicas and saxophones, you know. Um, and so I'm like, well, that sounds like me. If that's what the 37th is, I must have strong 37th. And so I just cast my 37th harmonic chart. I want to show you a place where you could do that for free online, in case you don't have nifty astrology software. I want to show you a way that you can calculate harmonics using a simple calculator, as I have been recently in YouTube things. But before I get to all that, because oftentimes people just say, hey, what's the point of it? There's something for me now that if the theory is, if according to my calculations and, theoretical intrigue, there's something in the air in these very kind of social planets that demands we dive deep into the mysteries of life. And to do this not only in the way that we were told by some priest or teacher, big book, be it scripture or science, but rather by following our own wonder, our own imagination, our own observations of the mysteries of our earthly experience to find our own answers. And while this is, I think, like a very social global call, because I'm looking at this in a Jupiter Saturn thing in the sky for us all, not aligned to your chart or to mine, this, I would say, is another reminder that, the mundane, the global, calls to us each individually in a unique way. Okay, so let's get out the calculators and play. Before I share the screen too, let me just type in a website here, which Peter's amazing place called AstroSeek, which I imagine you know about. I have a free account here. Maybe you do too. If you don't, you can just click free horoscopes here. I'm going to first log in because when I do, then I won't have to type in my birth data when I go to free horoscopes. It will already be there for me. But, if you could just hit free horoscopes, birth natal chart, online calculator, type in your stuff, calculate the chart. And beneath the chart, you want to first confirm that it's you. Beneath the chart, you're going to see all these related charts, including like draconic astrology, horary, heliocentric, other amazing things. As you can see here, harmonic. When I click the harmonic button, it's going straight to a 9th harmonic chart. And the reason why is the D9 chart is probably the most popular of the divisional charts in Vedic astrology, where divisional charts are what in Western astrology we now call harmonic charts are most popular and have most historical use. Now, topic for a different time, but most of the divisional charts in Vedic astrology are not harmonic charts. The ninth, though, the Nimvamsha, is. Any harmonic chart takes the zodiac and divides it into a number of mini zodiacs, like the ninth harmonic divides the zodiac into 9 mini zodiacs. And a rule of harmonic would be that they have to move through zodiacal order. So in the case of the ninth, it would be 9 tiny mini zodiacs starting at 0 Aries and going from 0 Aries Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, and then starting at Aries again and doing that 9 times through the zodiacal order without skipping any signs. That's a harmonic. All right, so this is what the ninth harmonic of my nativity looks like. I can just easily go to this drop down and check out the 37th. Boom. So, as I was saying, when I'm reading this thing about, do your own research into the mysteries of life, and even, let me read this again from the Vibrational Astrology Study Guide, Module 2, and it's like, digging deeply into some specialized area to develop a rich, unique, multi-layered essence over time. Seeking a perfected mastery of the area of interest. Yes, I am, and I often am. And I don't know if that says obsession too, but I got that one. Maybe that shows up in a different harmonic. Anyway, so when I look at this harmonic chart, and as you can see, there's some options here beneath the chart. Okay, so this is the 37th harmonic chart of my nativity. You can follow along. Thanks to Peter and the folks at AstroSeek for making this tool just very easily available for free and also easy to navigate. Like Deep Bow, you guys are providing some amazing astrological tools for the community, and I very much personally appreciate this, and I know many others do as well. There's 1,222 online users at this time. We love you. Okay. Anyway, so I mean, there's things to notice here. First, I'm just going to look at some of these options. Do I want Lilith on? You know what? We'll see. But I do prefer personally the true Black Moon Lilith calculation. That box is checked. I think I've saved these defaults. I prefer the true to the mean lunar nodes calculation. I try to tell the truth. I try not to be mean. Cute. Do I want to display aspects to the part of fortune? Yeah, you know what? I'm going to turn these off. No, right now I'm not going to display aspects to part of fortune, to Chiron, to Lilith. I'll keep the lunar node selected, and I'll keep the angle selected, though David Cochran suggests we don't, because do we really know that dialed in birth moment? And once you get into higher harmonics like 37th, gosh, 10 seconds is going to matter in your birth time. But regardless, I'm going to keep those on. I'm going to redraw this chart. And now we're going to see some less lines because I'm not drawing lines to Lilith or the part of fortune or to Chiron. And look what happens if I add Chiron. I just noticed this as I was talking. If I add Chiron back in, now you get this really strong pyramid shape. So maybe I'll keep Chiron in because there's a couple of things I suggest you kind of first want to look for in your harmonics to know whether or not you're strong in that harmonic. One is conjunctions, especially if those planets are not conjunct in your nativity. I do not have a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in my nativity, and that's a super strong conjunction. All right, while I'm there, I want you to notice that Jupiter and Uranus in this harmonic chart, they're in harmonic Aquarius, well, 37th harmonic Aquarius. Most harmonic astrologers, by the way, ignore signs and houses in harmonic charts. I actually see they speak. I'm going to kind of leave that aside right now. But we do see not only are Uranus and Jupiter together, there's no other conjunctions. Does that mean I'm weak in this harmonic? No. We see Uranus and Jupiter together, and they have a strong trine with Pluto. Now, how strong is it? It's not as strong as this Venus-Chiron trine, because if it was, it would be drawn in this software as this thick-ass line, all right? So there's something here about Mercury, Venus, and Chiron in this triangle. I call it a sexy trine. When we have a trine, with a point at the midpoint or planet at the midpoint, the sextiles in between. So it's Mercury sextile Venus, Mercury sextile Chiron, Venus trine Chiron in this like hat shape that some call a sextile fan, sextile in another sextile, but I prefer sexy trine because it sounds kind of sexy, you know? And it's just a point at sextiles of a trine. Okay. Well, there's another one here between that Uranus Jupiter conjunction, or let me speak the name of the faster moving planet first, as it is proper to do. Jupiter Uranus conjunction, which is very tight. And they are trine with Pluto, and the sun is at their midpoint. Now here in AstroSeek, if I click that chart, I'm going to make it small again. I can scroll down a little bit and see the strength of these aspects. So what about Jupiter and Uranus in conjunction? Jupiter conjunct Uranus, 1 degree in 23 minutes. What about Jupiter and Uranus trine Pluto? Jupiter trine Pluto, 2.5 degrees. Uranus trine Pluto, 1 degree, 3 minutes. What about that sun? So sun sextile Jupiter, sun sextile Uranus, sun sextile Pluto. And we have sun with Uranus 5.5 degrees in a sextile. That's pretty wide. Sun sextile Pluto, 421. And actually, sun sextile Jupiter is not tight enough in geometry for it to even be indicated here in AstroSeek. I don't think I'm able to change the orbs, at least in my free account, or I just haven't found it anyway. So, yeah, I mean, we definitely have Uranus and Jupiter conjunct, Uranus and Jupiter trine Pluto. Whether or not the sun's at their midpoint, kind of questionable. Well, let's look for Mercury, Venus, and Chiron. Right there, you get these kind of thick lines. This little hat, the sexy trine. And so Mercury sextile Venus within a degree, which is why they've made it bold here. Mercury sextile Chiron should show up. That's kind of down here in a different section. They're showing Chiron trine Venus, 23 arc minutes, Chiron sextile Mercury, 24 arc minutes. Super strong, right? Okay, so now the task is, what is 37? And then how do we combine Mercury, Venus, and Chiron to speak about that? Or let's just maybe do Uranus, Neptune, or sorry, Uranus, Jupiter, and Pluto. The idea is like Pluto's in on it. Yes, it's not a conjunction, but he's in on it. I want to show you how this works in the natal chart, like how we get from there to here. I'll do it for Jupiter and Uranus. I mean, clearly they're pretty close to some kind of 37th in my chart. I just want to point out while I'm here, there's also a Moon Mars trine and some other stuff. Sun Mars square. So let me look at that. Sun is square Mars. That's 5.5 degrees. That's pretty wide orb for a square. I like 4 in a harmonic chart for squares. What about the moon trine Mars, 3 degrees? That's in. So yeah, the 37th, like there's only 2 planets that merge in a 37th harmonic for me. And the only reason why I'm interested in it, first of all, Jupiter and Saturn have inspired me to do this today. And then I read about the 37th harmonic in this vibrational astrology study guide module 2. And I'm like, hey, that kind of sounds like someone I know. I must have some 37ths. All right, so how's that landing for you? Let me do a little math and then I'll check in with the chat. All right. And instead of well, yeah, I guess since I just showed that example of me, let me show this to you in my nativity. So let's look at Jupiter and Uranus. The 37th harmonic chart of my nativity revealed that there's in some kind of 37th thing. Here's Jupiter at 1808 Aries when I'm born. This is tropical, the Earth zodiac. All right. Uranus is at 242 Scorpio. So generally speaking, they're in conjunct, just by plates, whole signs, and traditional aspect theory. Let's prepare our calculators, friends. How far are they actually? 150 degrees from 242 Scorpio is 242 Aries. So I've got to go another 16, or really 15 degrees and 16 arc minutes. So it's 150 plus 15 and 16 arc minutes. I'm going to call that 15 arc minutes because that's a quarter of a degree. So 150 plus 15 and a quarter is 165.25. Now the game is divide the wheels 360 degrees by that. 360 divided by 165.25. And I get this weird thing. So it's telling me that Jupiter and Uranus are 2.17 of a zodiac apart from one another. And then I can either go to my nerd sheet that I'm like consistently expanding and creating, or would I mean, I use that sheet if I can't just tame this number, as I call it. Taming this number is what whole number or integer can I multiply this by to get a whole number back? And I'm looking at this thing. What if I multiply it by 7? No, that's not a whole number. I want a whole number. What if I multiply it by, I don't know. All right, so this is where I am going to go to this little spreadsheet I'm creating. And I actually want to talk with Peter at AstroSeek. I just wrote an email to the folks at Astro Gold Software about putting some harmonic calculators in that could just kind of spit out what harmonic each of your planets are in regard to every other planet or point in your chart. It's not that hard to do, like mathematically, in this age of computers. David Cochran's Sirius and Kepler software certainly do this. So in this sheet, there's a way I can play where I can just kind of search for this thing. So I'm gonna go 2.17 and I get 7 different options. Let's go 2.178. There's only one found. It's 28/61. Okay. But somewhere on this 37th harmonic realm, let me go 2.179. There's one of those, but it's in the 85th harmonic. So I'm rewinding back to 2.17. And even there, this is, no, I don't know. Oh no, here it is. 2.1765 is 17. It's 37 divided by 17. And look, I understand once the calculators and the spreadsheets come out, it's like, dude, is this even astrology? And what the hell are you talking about? This is like one of the issues with harmonics. It can get so like nerdy and intellectual, right? Like we want to get after what does this thing mean? But even trying to find out what your harmonics are can be tricky. This is telling me that if I multiply this number, it tells me how far or how much of the zodiac Jupiter and Uranus are separated in my chart. If I multiply this by 17, I'm going to get close to a whole number. The whole number is 37, right? So it tells me that Jupiter and Uranus are separated by 17/37ths of the zodiac when I was born. Let's confirm that in a different way. What is a 37th of the zodiac? 360 divided by 37. It's 9.73 degrees. All right, what about 17 of those? And that's 165.4 degrees. All right, 0.4 degrees is how many arc minutes? And the answer is 24.5 arc minutes, right? That's about the distance between Jupiter and Uranus in my natal chart. Let's do another one that's actually more simple and what brought me here. Anyway, I said I would check in with the chat. One of you wrote that your 37th is like particularly active. Let me go find the live chat. I think that was you, Michelle. And so, Michelle, I also see you kind of calling out some of the things that you noticed in my 37th harmonic chart, it sounds like, or maybe in yours. Oh yeah, you're saying you have a kite in the 37th, right? So we're kind of looking for strong aspect shapes, hopefully kind of in tighter orbs. Um, all right, so let me do this. Well, Michelle, I see that you wrote, or K, Michelle, I'm just gonna write K. Let's cast your chart here because you say this is a strong harmonic for you. Um, so thank you for sharing your birth data. We're not going to get all too deep or psychological here, and I'll ask for consent if I ever go there, okay? But here I'm just going to nerd out with a calculator. 2:30 p.m. in Melbourne. Oh wait, wrong. Wait, I just saw, oh, I see, 10:38 a.m. in Ohio. Got it, okay. Okay, so here is K's buttons, where are you? Natal chart. Thanks again for sharing your data for the sake of science. Um, if I cast a 37th harmonic of K's nativity, we're going to see what she was just mentioning in the live chat there, which is that she has this kite. The kite would include the descendant degree. There's a mystic rectangle as well of like Mercury, Neptune, the nodes with Mars, and the ascendant descendant axis. So that's intriguing to me. We see a really strong Mars Neptune trine, Mars at the nodes, Moon Uranus conjunction. So let's just like break one of those down mathematically. And I'm going to do it by a conjunction. So let's look at Moon and Uranus in the natal chart. Moon here at 2711 tropical Virgo, Uranus at 15 Sag. Right, so here's an interesting case, right? It's like, all right, Moon and Uranus, they're square, but are they? Like they're in signs that are square to one another. I mean, typically, if I see something about 10 degrees off of a square, I'm going to say, oh, they're in like a 9. Because nines of the zodiac, a ninth of the zodiac, 360 degrees divided by 9 is 40, right? That's called the novile, 1/9. Two of those, binovile, is 80 degrees. And so we see Uranus here having a binovile relationship in super strong orb with Venus. All right, well, going back to the wheel, the moon's only 2 degrees off of that. I'm actually kind of surprised that's not showing up in my settings for Uranus and moon in a binovile off by about 20 degrees. Like, I'm down to work with that. The moon and Uranus, they're about 2/9 of the zodiac or 80 degrees apart from one another, but they're more like 78 degrees away and a little bit less. So let's see what Moon and Uranus are like actually. 78 degrees from 2711 is going to get 1511 Sag. So it's 10 arc minutes less than that. All right, well, 10 arc minutes is, I'm going to go 10 over 60, 0.16 of a degree. So this is 78 minus this, which is 77 and 2/3 of a degree. How did that work? Hold on a second. I'm just going to go 78 minus 78 minus 10 arc minutes. So 78 minus 10 divided by 60. And you get 77.833 degrees. Okay, that's the separation between this 2711 Virgo moon and this 1501 Sagittarius Uranus. All right. So let me add this to the memory here, and I'm going to divide the wheel 360 degrees by that distance. And we get 4.625. Okay, again, I want to tame that number. what happens if I multiply that by 8 and I get 37? Almost exactly. So K was born with Moon and Uranus separated by 8/37. Let me show that to you in another way. 360 divided by 37 is 9 something. So 9.7 degrees is a 37th of a zodiac. Well, 8 of those is 77.837 degrees. That's just about the separation between this Virgo moon and this Sagittarius Uranus. And that means when I cast this 37th harmonic chart, I'm going to find moon and Uranus conjunct. I also see that they're trine and really in a grand trine, though, this is where we get into orbs. David Cochrane School, and I kind of appreciate it. They just start with 16 degrees for a conjunction. And then you divide by the harmonic of the aspect. So for an opposition, which is a two-ness, we divide that 16 degrees of orb by 2. We get 8 degrees for an opposition. For a square, we would divide 16 by 4. You get 4 degrees, which is why I said that before. For a trine, I'm going to divide 16 by 3, and I get 5.3 degrees. Right? So if I'm going to use that, well, Moon and Uranus qualify. Mars and Uranus qualify. Moon and Mars, like just barely. Okay. So some are stronger than others. But basically, when you get to harmonic charts, and so, okay, yeah, 37th harmonic super strong for you. Not only do we see the Moon Uranus conjunction, but we also see Mercury Neptune, and Mars is in on it, right? Let's just do like Moon, Mercury, Uranus, Neptune, because in David Cochrane's Vibrational Astrologies, The Essentials, he offers his take on planetary combinations, and he gets up to 4 planets. So combining Mercury, Moon, Mercury, Uranus, and Neptune. It's going to take me a second to find that combination here. His suggestion is Moon, Mercury, Uranus, Neptune. Has extraordinary keen imagination, belief in paranormal, astrology, angels, or enjoys fantasy. Dreams feel vivid and real. Extremely sensitive. It is best to avoid abuse of alcohol and drugs. Combine such sensitivity with a healthy lifestyle, adequate training, focus, and positive attitude. I mean, you can just kind of hear all these planets kind of mashed up into one delineation. It's really difficult editing in this, but anyway. But that in respect to 37th harmonic, which he's describing as this, like, I'm just going to call it independent research into the mysteries of life. There's kind of harmonic shorties in this text too. What he says about 37, building one's own masterpiece over time. So, Kay, I guess my question for you is, does hearing that do anything for you? Right? Like, is there anything descriptive of the masterpiece that you're building over your life when we combine those planets? And so I actually want to just check in with the live chat and see, okay, if you want to respond at all. You wrote that you were a researcher until you weren't allowed to be one anymore. Oh, that's intriguing. We hear that maybe the Uranus in that, right? Why aren't you allowed to be a researcher anymore? Right? So I'm intrigued to see that. Will asks, what's the name of the software that I'm using to cast these charts? For a time, I was at AstroSeek, astro-seek.com online, where you can do a lot of these things for free. The charts that I've been looking at most presently are the Astro Gold astrology software, which is specifically designed for the Mac platform. Okay. So, and then Michelle, or Kay, I see you're writing that it looked a bit different on AstroSeek. It will, like the kind of aspects that they're highlighting, the orbs that they use, etc. And then Lolita, love Lolita. I see your writing. Thank you. I'm going to have to go back and watch how you did the math again and learn how to do it. So let me show you one more time, and I actually really appreciate folks who are interested in like doing some of the math, right? I mean, it's a great way to get to chase people out of the room. You know, and many will teach these things. Oh, just don't worry about it. Just let the computer do all that for you. And you know that for me, like that doesn't satisfy this kind of what I'm reading about the 37th harmonic thing, right? I want to do my own research. I want to know like the nuts and bolts of the thing. And so, I think it can be incredibly tedious and boring and maybe chase folks away. And that's why I wanted to say before I dive in this time, like just the general read of the thing and if it's a thing at all. But then I want to take some time to get to it and then see what comes through in the process. All right. So, let me show you, Lolita, love Lolita, how I would do this or how I did this morning with like sleep in my eyes with the transit chart. Um, and I want to just speak in general about Jupiter and Saturn, and then we'll look at the transit chart for the right here and now, connecting the two of them. All right. So let me go here. This is this moment now. I'm recording this on Thursday, Jupiter's Day, November 16th, 2023, 12:27 p.m. Um, I'm going to set this to 12 p.m. And the other thing I'm going to do here is I want to change this to a zero Aries wheel. And I'm going to take the angles away. So we'll just kind of look at this from like a more global perspective, if you will. So 12 p.m. Pacific time today, but just kind of going for the houseless thing. Um, so a zero Aries wheel. All right. Let's rewind time and speak about when Jupiter and Saturn conjoined most recently. So this would be their synod or synode, which means meeting. Jupiter and Saturn met in the first degree of tropical Aquarius on December 21st, 2020. It was 10:20 a.m. Pacific time, very close to the solstice, on south, right? So people will see this so often when they're here at my page. I'm waving the armillary sphere around to help you remember or learn perhaps that the tropical zodiac is in fact absolutely astronomical. It's Earth astronomical. All right, Earth's south pole leans in every moment forever towards 0 degrees tropical Capricorn on the ecliptic, which is the plane that Earth describes as we orbit the sun. In that annual revolution about the light, there is one moment each year when Earth's south pole is leaning towards the sun. Maximum light for the southern hemisphere, summer solstice, minimum light for the northern hemisphere, winter solstice. Globally speaking, I call it the solstice. Why? Because the Earth's southern pole is leaning towards the light. When the sun ingresses tropical Capricorn, the sun shines directly above the Tropic of Capricorn, which is the southern bounds or most south point of the ecliptic, most south of the equator, the plane of our rotation. Yes, friends, despite what the idiots online are trying to tell you, the tropical zodiac is incredibly astronomical. It is earth astronomical. Like so many ancient systems of sacred wisdom traditions, the tropical zodiac is directionally aligned. In fact, I would argue, and this is the global truth of the tropical zodiac, despite the seasonal opposition between hemispheres, it is directionally defined. Okay, so it was solstice, sun ingress tropical Capricorn, shining directly above the Tropic of Capricorn, as he does once each year. It was here in this moment where the sun was on the Tropic of Capricorn when Jupiter and Saturn conjoined in the first degree of tropical Aquarius. Now, many astrologers went off and were like, the first Jupiter Saturn conjunction in air signs for 200 years. It's like, yo, did you forget about 1981 when they conjoined in Libra? Oh, it wasn't long after, maybe sometime around after this kind of new moon or conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, when they went full moon style, Jupiter opposite Saturn, when people started getting internets and personal computers and shit. Feels pretty air sign. Makes me feel like checking my email, but that whole thing just stresses me out. Sorry if I owe you 6 of them. Right? So look, Jupiter and Saturn conjoined in 1961 in Capricorn. Let's just go back and see a bunch of these. Here's 1921, Virgo. Here is about 20 years later, 1940, Taurus. About 20 years later, 1961, Capricorn. About 20 years later, 1980, Libra. So also 1981, Libra, and Libra again. So when Jupiter meets Saturn, you either get 1 exact alignment or 3. Jupiter will sometimes pass Saturn, retrograde, cross Saturn again, and then make a 3rd conjunction while they're together, okay? And these synods or meetings of Jupiter and Saturn are separated by about 20 years and by about a trine. All right, so rewinding again to the one before this in 60s, 1961, 25 Capricorn. And so it's going to go to Virgo next. Oops, nope, it goes to Libra. This was the first air sign conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in about 200 years. They spend about 200 years in each element and about 800 years going through the 4 elements. And they basically draw a triangle in the zodiac that's kind of slowly retrograding. No, it's actually moving direct. So after this, they had like either this was the shift to the air element, or this was the premonition of what would come. If this was the shift, then the one in 2000, which was in Taurus, was like the swan song for the element that used to be, which was the earth element, or this is the last of those. It's kind of both, right? But certainly at this time in December 21st, 2020, when we had 1 exact alignment of them, and in the very first degree of tropical Aquarius, this was like a committed shift of Jupiter and Saturn, this social cycle, to the air element. Some think of this as part of the turning of the age of Aquarius. Now, that's really based upon astronomical mysteries that have nothing to do with Jupiter and Saturn. That doesn't mean we shouldn't like connect them and see the wheels within the wheels within the wheels, but let me get the armillary sphere back out. What the age of Aquarius would be about is when this east point, why do I call it east point? It's square to the south and north, defined by Gaia's spine, the sword of our stone, the world tree, our rotational axis, the pole. And it's this point where the ecliptic, the plane of the year, norths across the equator, the plane of the day. That point is due east, not of California or New York, but of the center of Earth where we are all one. And in that way, it works like a global ascendant. And as that point due to the 3rd motion of Earth, which is axial precession, about a 26,000 year cycle, the great year, as that point precesses or moves backwards, some would suggest through the constellations of a constellational zodiac, some would say through the signs of a star-based or sidereal zodiac. That's going to take us through the ages, like moving from the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius. Now, the issue is the math is super fuzzy. There's a lot of things you have to define to suggest where this is and where it is not. So anyway, a Jupiter-Saturn conjunction at the first degree of Aquarius would in no way have anything to do with that particular astronomical framework that would determine the astronomical ages. But it happened. It's interesting. Pluto's moving into Aquarius. This first degree of Aquarius is a very sensitive degree at our time. Why? Because it's where Jupiter and Saturn most recently planted their seed. So as Pluto transits this point, is transiting that point like now, there's something about this Jupiter Saturn conjunction and the cycle that they defined or initiated with this meeting that itself is being Plutoed or activated in its own interesting way. You feel some Pluto in the social airs right now? Yes, you do. Okay. So, we can look at the Jupiter Saturn cycle in many regards. Many of us will kind of look at these. Like if you look at the great work by Richard Tarnas, Cosmos and Psyche, I don't think he's looking at the Jupiter Saturn cycle. He's certainly looking at like the Saturn Pluto cycle and the Jupiter Pluto cycle. And you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not sure if he does the Jupiter Saturn cycle. Now, I mean, since what, 1781? We've started discovering slower moving planets. Yeah, 1781, the discovery of Uranus, who takes 84 years to get around. Neptune, discovered in 1846, takes more than twice as much time. No, a little bit less. I think 156 years to trip the zodiac. Pluto, discovered in 1930, 248 years to get around the thing, right? And so the old long cycle, which was the Jupiter Saturn cycle of about 20 years, it just ain't long anymore. When you start getting your Uranus Pluto conjunctions, which are separated by anywhere from 130 to 170 years. 20 years seems like this small amount of time now. Do you feel me? um, I just want to just look into the chat. So, Judith, what do you call that instrument you use for demonstrations? This is called an armillary sphere, and you can find them online. You can find them with Zodiac and Tax. I challenge you to find one that is correct. I had to take this one apart and put it back together. Most of them, like, I can't even save them because people have just lost the thread, and people are, oh, this looks cool, and they don't care about its design. Aries, the cusp of Pisces and Aries should be at the east point, which is where the ecliptic, the heart of the zodiac, the plane of the year, crosses the equator, the plane of the day, moving from the south to the north. Zero Cancer should be at the Tropic of Cancer. Zero Capricorn should be at the Tropic of Capricorn. So I had to like take this thing off and turn it around. I don't know if this even shows up. So Capricorn is here in the south. When I took it out of the box, it was on the north. And it's, by the way, why like all these glyphs are upside down. This one was the least wrong armillary sphere I've found. And there's some other issues with it that show up in this stand. If anyone's a metal maker and wants to get down, let's fix this problem together. Holler, GeminiBrett.com. All right. Because, yeah, I have some of that 37 thing or whatever it is that makes me an independent researcher. And so, with plenty of, well, frankly, plant medicine is a very important time in my own personal healing path and deep contemplations, typically with a globe in my hand. I asked, what is the zodiac? And over time, I've been shown, right? And I'm really interested in like my deep investigations of that code, of sharing it, because so many people are telling you the tropical zodiac is in no way astronomical. They are ignorant. And so are sadly the makers of many cool ancient instruments like this, which are not really being made to the specifications of, well, real astronomy. This one's good, but it was coded for some time in the 17th century and for a different latitude on Earth than where I live, and so I can't use it. Um, anyway, looks cool, and it's helping me learn not only more about my craft, but about how my ancestors would have approached this thing. All right. Cool. So let's look at where Jupiter and Saturn are in their current cycle. So many who observe these cycles over time will like the kind of principal stages of a lunation, right? Which are what? New moon, waxing half moon, or the opening square, the full moon or the opposition, and the waning half moon or the closing square. Um, and then the next new moon, right? Like these are the quadrature, the fourth harmonic expressions of a synodic cycle. So we have Jupiter and Saturn conjunct December 21st, 2020. Jupiter square Saturn. Notice I'm speaking the name of the faster moving planet first. Here they are, first degree of Aquarius. And then on August 19th, 2024, with Jupiter in Gemini and Saturn in Pisces, we get Jupiter applying to and then perfecting this square with Saturn. I'm looking at where the sun is to see that Jupiter will station retrograde 5 months from here. I think Jupiter will make another one of these squares. Yeah, December 24th, 2024, when we're all like, just learned that song by accident last night. So here again, Jupiter and Gemini square Pisces Saturn, right? And there'll be a third one of these. June 15th, 2025, right? Initiating kind of the next stage of that cycle with the opposition, which is kind of like the full moon. So Jupiter opposite Saturn, 2029. It's a 20-year cycle. Here we are actually exactly 9 years. How amazing that this is also at solstice. What? They were conjunct on December 21st, 2020? Exactly 9 years later, opposite on December 21st, 2029. My guess is we're going to have 3 oppositions. Yeah, April 23rd, 2030. And then finally, November 19th, 2030. So now here with this last of the 3 oppositions, and intriguingly, see how they change signs for those oppositions too? This is about 10 years from their conjunction or synod, and it's about a 20-year cycle, not quite. All right, then we'll have Jupiter closing square Saturn, the third quarter square of the cycle, like a waning half moon. Here, April 25th, 2035. Jupiter in Aries, Saturn in Cancer at the time, right? Either 1 or 3 of those, we get 3, October 22nd, 2035. Saturn in Leo, Jupiter in Taurus, like another sign change, intriguingly. And then a third one, February 2036, Taurus, Jupiter, right? So like a Jupiter return from now, and Saturn between Jupiter going all the way around the zodiac will have moved from Pisces only to Leo. And then their next conjunction, Jupiter conjunct Saturn, either 1 or 3 of these will have one on October 31st, happy Halloween, 2040 in Libra, right? So air sign. And then another Jupiter-Saturn conjunction about 20 years later, but not 20 years, April 7th, 2060, Gemini. 1980, Aquarius, 2080, 2100, Libra, 2119, Gemini. You see, it's like air sign, air sign, air sign, air. So what is it? Like, what is like this kind of social construct? If we even consider Jupiter and Saturn to be a social cycle anymore, why would it have been considered the social cycle in ancient astrology? Because it's the long one. It's the longest one. Jupiter and Saturn are the slowest moving planets. And then 1781 happened. And William and Caroline Herschel were out comet hunting, and then they found one, and uh-oh, it's a planet. Right? And now Uranus is in the mix. And then 1846, Neptune. Pluto. I mean, look, Eris and Haumea and Maki Maki and all the right. So now we have these really like long cycles, yeah. Um, but this is the long cycle back in the day. And feel into like what is Jupiter? What is Saturn? How do they work against each other? How do they work together? What do they want from us? What does an Aquarius seed want from us? What does this air paradigm want from us? What is it encouraging us to do? What is it offering us? Aquarius, revolt. Is it? I mean, for me, look, Aquarius, and maybe I could say this about air in response to Earth, but let me start with Aquarius in response to Capricorn. If Capricorn is the rules of the game and the game is good, then Aquarius will innovate within those rules. The example I always use is chess. Chess, the pawn ones or twos out the gate and takes diagonally. The horse does the thing. We call them knights. The bishops moves on diagonal and always stay on their same color, right? The queen can do whatever the hell she wants because she's the queen, son. King can't do much but lose the game for you. So there's, these beautiful rules to a beautiful game, and it is good. And because it is good, then Aquarius does not revolt against the game. It can, and nerds get into their 3D chess and whatnot, and awesome. It's like harmonics. But if the rules of the game are the good, then Aquarius will innovate within the game. And so, folks who know chess, and I'm not one of them, let me just search online famous chess openings. How about the Roy Lopez, the Sicilian defense, the French defense, the Queen's Gambit, right? Recently made famous by a book and a TV show. Right? Like there's these things. Like if you're a chesser, beyond the simple rules of the knight goes 3 and 1 and the bishop moves diagonally and the rook moves only horizontally or vertically or whatever. Like things like the Queen's Gambit. You see what happened? Like there was Capricorn and then Aquarius. And it wasn't like burn chess, it's the patriarchy. You know what I'm saying? It was like fucking chess is awesome, but how can we take chess to the next level and the next level and the next level, right? And probably you speak to a chesser about the Queen's Gambit, they're like, right? You rookie. Who knows, right? Like I'm not there. What about astrology? Like you can go sun sign astrology, whatever. Or oh wait, no, there's so much more to this. Or wait, what are these things? Like this new paradigm is born, but it's not a new paradigm, right? Like I mean, you can look at like the gene keys, for example. It's beautiful. Like Richard Rudd is like happy to say that it's not astrology. It's like cool. Well, how do I find out my gene keys? Well, give me your birth date and time and place. Oh, that's astrology. And it's based on human design, which is based on astrology, but it was this weird revolution, right? This kind of channeled Uranian thing, if you will. Harmonic astrology, like for David, it's like the true astrology. It's like it replaces your astrology of your rulerships and things. For me, it's a tool to add to my astrology. It's not the Aquarian blast my Capricorn apart. It's the Aquarian offering an innovative tool to add to my framework. Yeah. So I mean it kind of depends on where you at. How are we going to respond to this Aquarius thing? Now as Jupiter and Saturn were Aquarius were coming and we were all talking about what's it gonna be and what's it gonna do. And like when things are applying and are about to happen, we get super excited about it, right? and nervous about it. Just like I'm nervous if I'm going to go take my final exam, whether I studied or not, you know? On the way out of the test, it's like, that was a relief. But you don't know what score you got, even if you feel you rocked it. I would often leave a math quiz knowing I got everyone right because I proved my work and whatnot. And then maybe I got surprised a little bit later, you know, or thought I failed it, but I didn't do so bad, you know, like because Jupiter and Saturn conjoined in late 2020 and now we're 3 years later, do we know what it was? How do you pronounce that politely? Fuck no. We have some thoughts and feels. We can look around. Now, it's hard to get a clean experiment in astrology. You'll hear me say that all the time if you spend your time over here at the School of Astrology, y'all. Because while Jupiter and Saturn are doing this, what's Neptune up to, you know, whatever. Okay, so let me get to the point of this thing and kind of wrap it up because I have a client in just a little bit. Yeah. Um, Jupiter and Saturn are kind of in this interesting stage of this cycle, right? Okay, so what about a cycle? The conjunction, the opening square, the opposition, the closing square. Let's talk about Dane Rudhyar, who really brought a lot of this kind of cyclical awareness to us, which was great. And he used much more than the 4 points of the cycle, but he talked about, you know, conjunction being the seed. The opening square is sprouting. Now, I always like to say sprouting ain't easy, right? The plant's got to bust through the hard soil, be exposed to the winds and the rains, you know, but they say the wind's job is to bend the young plant so it will like grow strength and courage, right? To be strong for a long life. Dinrajar, I usually speak about like the flowers at full moon time. He calls it the fruit. And I think there's a lot of sense to that. And then from there it's kind of like the seed has attained its thing, and now the next half of the cycle is going to be what happens with that fruit. Like, you know, does it go to market? How does its seeds get back into the ground for the next cycle and the like? But he speaks about the opening square as a conflict in action, and the closing square as a conflict in spirit, right? I like to kind of say seed, let me say it this way: intentions conjunction tension opening square. um How do I say that? It's been so long. The full moon will be like perceptions, the opposition, and then the closing will be like wisdom. And there's way better ways I've said that in the past. I kind of want to see if I can easily find one of my old moon game slides. Yeah, great. Cool. This is the code. This used to just be central to all of my astrology. It's when I used to call my work more than astrology, and it's been a while since I've played it. But like, so seeding, sprouting, flowering, fruiting, intentions, tensions, illumination, and integration, consciousness, perception, mindfulness, and wisdom. So the whole point of this is like you set an intention, these tensions come in. Often I would experience this, right? Like I would set an intention around a new moon. I mean, it's just a week later. It's kind of not enough time, but if I really dialed into my intention, some weird shit happens, some conflict happens. Typically, it seems like it has nothing to do with the intention I set. It's just some mess. But that's because like of my perceptions. I can't even see why it's actually exactly addressing the intention I set, right? And so then I'm encouraged as I start to see that a shift in my mindfulness that's coming with the illumination. That's like the full moon or the opposition. And then if I'm willing to kind of integrate that, which is going to require like a full perception shift, then there's wisdom. And that is actually a conflict in spirit because like the old me has to die for this new me to step in. Now this ain't about me, and it is because it's about all of us, you see. So when we get to this opening square of the Jupiter Saturn cycle, from the time that they were conjunct. So let's go now, rewinding the clock. Jupiter conjunct Saturn, solstice, December 2020, first degree of tropical Aquarius. 3 exact squares coming soon to a theater called You, which will be August 19th, 2024, Gemini, Jupiter, square, Pisces, Saturn, and 2 more that look like that. Christmas Eve, 2024, Gemini, Jupiter, square, Pisces, Saturn. You know, the first one was direct Jupiter, retrograde Saturn. Now here's retrograde Jupiter, direct Saturn. Interesting. And then we're going to get direct Jupiter, square, direct Saturn, but now from Cancer Jupiter, Aries Saturn, Cancer where Jupiter is said to be exalted, Aries where Saturn is said to be in fall. This is just before the Saturn Neptune conjunction, which will change everything. And on we go, wheels within wheels, cycles within cycles. Hard to get a clean experiment in astrology. Look where Pluto is at the time during their squares. Maybe the most interesting one of these being where Pluto is in their first 2 squares, because as you can see, Pluto is then transiting their synod or their conjunction degree where they met on December 21st, 2020 at solstice time. You see? So how do we combine all of this? Well, who cares? That's next year. What is now? And this is a thing that I've been really intrigued to see because I'm currently obsessed with harmonics. Jupiter quintile Saturn. We had the first of 3. Let's put 5s on the screen. Jupiter quintile Saturn, Taurus Jupiter quintile Pisces Saturn, August 30th, 2031. Venus had just begun a Leo cycle, the one that we're in for 19 months since August 13th, 2023. Leo creativity and love, Pisces imagination, but were the rules of the dream, might ask Saturn in Pisces. Taurus, Jupiter, deep expanded embodiment. Beauty is a spiritual practice. There's so much creativity and art in these. And look, live your life as art. You are your canvas. This is for me the reminder. Now let me show you the 2 other perfect quintiles, 72-degree alignments, 5th of the zodiac alignments between Jupiter and Saturn in this time that we're actually in right now. So August 30th, 2023, Jupiter quintile, direct Jupiter quintile retrograde Saturn. October 16th, 2023, retrograde Jupiter quintile retrograde Saturn. Taurus Jupiter, Pisces Saturn. May 28th, 2024, Gemini Jupiter quintile Pisces Saturn. Now this helps us remember that quintiles are not whole sign aspects. We get Taurus Jupiter quintile Pisces Saturn, Taurus Jupiter quintile Pisces Saturn, Gemini Jupiter quintile Pisces Saturn. Intriguingly, the second of these 3 quintiles features Saturn at the 1st degree of Pisces, and the third of these 3 features Jupiter at the 1st degree of Gemini, trining Pluto, who's at their synod point. Wheels within wheels within wheels. What I'm saying is, like most will say about the 5s, let's read what David Cochran has to say about 5ness, quintiles, the 5 vibration. Playfulness and creativity, exploring life through an outwardly directed engagement that is non-systematic and brings greater experience and understanding of the material world. Non-systematic can be pretty Piscean in and of itself. The material world can be pretty Tauresian in and of itself. I mean, that's intriguing. Now, others are going to say different things about the 5. I like Rick Levine saying it's kind of like the quest for like perfect design, the perfect, Venus star, if you will, the pentacle in the apple, which is never perfect, and neither is the Venus star if what you're seeking in perfection is the geometer's regular pentacle. For me, the 5 is how we take the noise of life, which is square manifestations and sometimes tensions and conflicts, and respond to it, how we dance to that noise, how we make it sound, which requires the listening ear. So I would suggest that in this interesting Jupiter Saturn Aquarius thing, right, that was seated on solstice 2020, we are in a time of that cycle which is amazingly creative. Okay, why? Because fifth harmonic, you are inspired to create and do this to save the world. It's a social cycle. Again, 3, August 30th, 2023, Taurus, Jupiter, quintile, Pisces, Saturn. October 16th, 2023, Taurus, Jupiter, quintile, Pisces, Saturn. And then finally, May 28th, 2024, Gemini, Jupiter, quintile, Pisces, Saturn. Now, with a moon sun cycle, you're only ever going to get one exact opening square. You would only get one exact opening or waxing quintile. Why do we get 3 with Jupiter and Saturn? Because they retrograde. And they have this amazing dance with one. Watch it in the sky. It's been amazing to see, and for me to just put one arm up towards the dim stern Saturn and one arm up towards the amazingly bright Jupiter, and feel a quintile in my body. Right? But not today. Today, if I go up there, I'm going to be feeling 737ths. Now look, 737ths is pretty close to 735ths, which is what? Wait, did I do that right? Yeah, 1/5 quintile. But they're not exactly quintile. So when I woke up this morning, I'm like, all right, I want to talk about Jupiter. It's like, what do I want to talk about Jupiter? I want to keep saying the same thing on these Jupiter days. And I was like, look, I'm obsessed with harmonic astrology. How far from Saturn is Jupiter now? Because I know they're generally in this quintile thing and hopefully inspiring this. And let me just try to close that and make a point here. Inspiring the imperative of embodying creative imagination as a rule of life so that when the conflict in matter comes for this social cycle, and you can already smell it in the air, we will be able to respond in a way that helps us grow without necessarily breaking us down. So where are we in this dance in this current moment? Well, something about the 37th harmonic, maybe. So why do I get there? I look at the chart for now. Now it's, oh God, we've been at this for a while, haven't we? Jupiter here at 8:41 Taurus, Saturn at 39 minutes of Pisces. Let's just go whatever. I'm just going to call this 8:39 to make the math easy, okay? How far away are they? And the answer is 68 degrees, right? So not 72, right? Like even I have pretty wide orbs here for these quintiles. Like here's Venus and Saturn in a biquintile. She was biquintile Jupiter recently. Now they're quincunx. And they're out by 3 degrees from a perfect biquintile, which we're seeing here in kind of a light line, okay? Stronger one between Chiron and the Sun-Mars conjunction, which perfects tomorrow. And so, they're quintile-ish. I mean, if I set wider orbs, the computer would draw a line. But the quintile 1/5 is 72 degrees, and this is 68, right? It's a sextile plus 8. All right, so here's the math. Break out your calculators. Simply divide the wheels 360 degrees by that phase arc. You could do this for any planets in your chart. 360 divided by 68. And I get this thing. 5.29. And it's like, what is that? Now you can go trial and error style. Here's the game now. We want to multiply this by whole numbers until we get a whole number back. What's this times 2? Is it a whole number? No. So I'm going to divide it by 2 and get back to where I was. What's this times 3? Now that's almost a third. So times 3, I'm pretty close to 16. Like they're kind of close to 3/16, which is 67.5 degrees. If I cast a 16th harmonic of this time, we're going to see Jupiter and Saturn near one another, 9 degrees away. Like that's a conjunction in harmonic astrology. Maybe working with them in 16th is a little bit easier. Let me just read to you about 16 from this Vibrational Astrology Study Guide, Module 2. 16, they would be 3/16 away from one another, about. And the 16th is, they say here, action from eternal thought patterns, internal evaluation processes expressed in the world, internally developed agenda or thought process that may manifest in the world as the behavior, right? So your dreams can become true. Pisces, Taurus, take the vision into reality. I love it. And Aquarius, you can. You are the revolution. You are the dawning of the age of Aquarius. You are the mystic crystal revelations, which the song proudly sings. And the life's true liberation, Aquarius. You know? Yes, yes, you are. All right. What are you also? Let's get a little bit more specific. So this is almost 16. Let me divide that by 3. I multiply this by 3, right? Remember, how did we get here? We notice they're 68 degrees away. I divide the circle by that 68, and there I am. All right, well, what's that times 4? I mean, it's almost 21. Not really. So let's bring it back to where we were. What's that times 5? Okay, I can just keep doing this. What's this times 6? And I'm looking for a whole number. What's this times 7? Bingo. 37.05 is pretty damn close to 37. Confirmed by when I cast a 37th harmonic chart of this moment, I see Jupiter and Saturn conjunct. Now, I'm not going to typically look for quintiles in a 37th harmonic chart. It's interesting to see some of that stuff. I'm typically going to look more for Ptolemaic aspects in any harmonic chart, because it tells me not only is this Jupiter Saturn in this 37th harmonic, it's Jupiter Saturn Neptune. It's Jupiter Saturn Pluto Neptune. It's Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Pluto, Neptune, right? It's like Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Whoa. It's Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune in T-square tension. It's Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto in wedge release. So let's just finish by going to some of these resources. Again, when I read of the 37, we're hearing independent review of mysteries of life, digging deeply into some specialized area to develop a rich, unique, multi-layered essence over time, seeking a perfected mastery of the area of interest. This is something I'm personally up to with harmonic astrology right now, which, by the way, tells me to do my own research, to dig deep. And by the way, advises me in my truly deeply rooted skeptic self not to believe this book or any other book, to go find out for myself. But how can I? Right? I have to do 1,000 charts. Cool thing is I am. Hey, you could go to GeminiBrett.com and book a reading with me, and we could look into your harmonics. And sorry, I was going to do an example of where somebody else was born into this cycle and which harmonic you are in that. I'm going to try to rush here. I have a client in 5 minutes, so I don't know. All right. But here in David Cochran's vibrational astrology, we can combine some planets. So let's do Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, which is like a tension in this 37, maybe something that's causing us to 37, which in this they simply say building one's masterpiece over time. Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. So this would be the tension because they're T square. Interest in religion, metaphysics, and how people structure and develop their beliefs and ideals. Good insights into fashions, fads, marketing, and economics. Okay. Well, I don't know. Is there any kind of like religious belief kind of thing happening on the world stage that might be inspiring some kind of social need to do your own fucking research? To dig deep. I don't know. I'll have to turn on the news. And then we see there's kind of a release pattern, the wedge in this Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Pluto. Here's Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Pluto. Good intuitive sense of how religious beliefs, high ideals, and fundamental collective beliefs influence and guide groups of people. Highly ethical personality. It is important that vanity, materialism, and superficiality do not replace high ideals in a culture. Fascinating. You know, I break out the calculator this morning on Jupiter, Saturn. I see that they're 737ths away from one another. I wonder what the heck is that? Thanks to some pioneers like David Cochran and his vibrational astrology, I'm able to actually get what some people say about it through their research. Thank you. Right? And then even what David feels, the combination of these four different planet combinations might say. And then maybe I see that that has something to do with my personal experience. Is it yours? To what's going on out there right now. And reminding me that I can do some independent research around, I don't know, my ethical sense in response to challenging vision of other people's religious beliefs. I mean, I don't know. I hate to swear so much, but it kind of seems like the shit works. And therefore, it's not shit at all, but something beautifully shiny and amazing. And I'm down to dig a little deeper. Okay, so I just want to do one chart example. And since I'm an arrogant bastard, I'm going to do mine. I'm wondering about like, where am I born into this cycle of Jupiter and Saturn? I have Saturn here at 234 Leo and Jupiter at 1808 Aries. All right, if I rewind before my birth, I can see that Jupiter conjoins Saturn in Capricorn. I'm born pretty late in the cycle that was seeded well before I was a twinkle in my daddy's eye in 1961. 25 Capricorn. It's an interesting point for me. I don't have anything there, yada yada, okay? After that time, Jupiter squared Saturn in the opening square, kind of waxing half phase of the cycle, with Jupiter in Gemini and Saturn in Pisces. And it looks like we're now just before my birth, Jupiter square Saturn, right? July 75, I'm born in October. There's actually, however, a third Jupiter Saturn square after my birth in March. Okay, so Aries, Jupiter square, Cancer, Saturn, all three of them. And I'm born between the second and the third exact squares. You know what? I didn't know that until right now. Even though I knew Saturn was about to retrograde after my birth, and you know I should. And it'd be interesting for me to just kind of look at my secondary progressions, for example, at this time. And I would suggest you do this with your chart. And just kind of see where I am in that Jupiter Saturn phenomena through secondary progressions. And Saturn's still in Leo. Like, it's not going to happen. In other progress charts, yeah. Okay, anyway, where am I more specifically? So I'm in the time of their squares, but this isn't square. 1808 Cancer squares 1808. Sorry, 1808 Aries squares 1808 Cancer. So I'm pretty far away. I had 4 degrees to that, and I'm at 2208 Cancer. I had 10. Okay, so square plus 4, 94 plus 10, 104 takes me to 208 Aries. And then what, 16 arc minutes? Let me call it 15. So I think it's 104.25 degrees. All right, then we take the calculator out. The wheel divided by 104.25, 3.45. What can I multiply that by to get a whole number? And the answer is not 6. Who are you again? Is it 14? It's what? Who are you? Oh, I should know this one. This is when going to my nerd sheet can be helpful. I can just search 3.45 here. I can tell you more about how I created this another time. And the answer is they are 11/38. All right, so let me cast my 38th harmonic chart. Thank you, past me, who took the time to nerd sheet the other morning and has been adding to it. So here, if I did the math right, we see Jupiter, Saturn conjunct. Now you look at that and you're like, is that conjunct at all? I'm seeing Jupiter, Neptune. And the answer is yes, but maybe there's another harmonic where they're closer. What do I do with the 38? Well, it's 19 times 2. So I'm just going to finish by reading 38. Is this some way that I'm personally charged in my Jupiter-Saturn thing to respond to a Capricorn cycle that I was born in this time of their opening square or conflict and action, sprouting? 38 is not written here. So basically I get after it by 19 times 2. 19. Analysis and evaluation of patterns forming a unique synthesis that is shared with others. But with others, because 19 times 2, that's you and me, right? Or me and the other, working with another. Like my interview with Rick Levine yesterday around harmonic astrology, which you can find at Astrology Hub's YouTube. Or me maybe working with David Cochran's book. I mean, it'd be a little easier if I was working with David Cochran and we'd have been sending each other long messages, and I'm very grateful for his guidance. Another way that I look into this is the musical harmonic series. So you will see down here at my sheet things like this, and I can see that the 19th harmonic creates a minor third. So, well, it's octave, which is the 38th harmonic, and I could talk about that some other time. But I don't want to sing such a sad, sad song. So I can just go play minor thirds, which that was, and try to contemplate my lot in life. Thanks for spending some time here. Y'all are awesome. Thank you for the present of your presence. I hope you've been enjoying these recently. If you have, please like the video. Please share it around with other star seekers like us, especially ones who aren't afraid of the calculator, maybe are even attracted to it. Please head over to GeminiBrett.com and book a session. Let's look at this together. Let's talk about it. Let's see if your harmonics in the Jupiter-Saturn cycle actually speak for part of your social charge. Does it work for you? How can you play it on a flute? All right, I hope to see you then when stars align. Until